Welcome to the Kit Car History File series, where we'll be going through the industry's past. We'll be visiting old marks of long ago, some modern ones, some mostly older stuff. A lot of archive information with photographs and information on the cars they made, the people involved and what happened to them.
Hi, my name's Steve Hull, editor of TKC MAG and totalkitcar.com, and I'd like to warmly welcome you to the Total Kit Car YouTube channel for another episode. And I'm going to say Total Kit Car again here. Total Kit Car History File series. Apologies. Hope you're having a great day. Really appreciate you giving up a chunk of your day to come and listen to this little old channel that we started just for a bit of a laugh. That's become pretty serious and kind of shows, much to my belief actually originally, that people are interested in old kit cars. So and that delights me actually, as someone that's given his career to the subject. It delights me to be able to talk, and I like to talk about some of these old companies that I knew quite well in many cases, and the cars they made at a different time. You know, the world's gone crazy in the last 4 or 5 years, but it certainly was a different world back in the mid-80s, that's for sure. And also, of course, tastes have changed, cars have changed, and the quality has gone up. I mean, today's kit car industry, the quality is absolutely fantastic. But anyway, that's enough waffling. Let's get on with today's episode. That's what you've come here for. Even if you're not a regular around here, you must know that we talk and specialise in classic kit cars and great designers, notable sort of things and happenings over this last 75 years of kit cars in the UK. And I record this in 2024, by the way, on one of the three days of our warm summer. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Today we're going to talk about a kit car company that, if you were into kit cars in the 80s and 90s, then you will undoubtedly know of them, because they sold enough cars combined to make a bit of a dent on the sales charts. But if you don't, and you're not aware of, you weren't around in those days and you're interested in the scene, then you're probably going to wonder what the hell I'm talking about. The company was called Eagle Cars, and they were based in what was at the time a real hotbed of kit car industry interest in West Sussex. There was a good double handful of manufacturers, led of course by the overriding presence that was Tim Dutton of Dutton Cars, who for many years was the leading kit car manufacturer in the UK. Sold 8,000 cars in total. Eagle Cars weren't anywhere on that scale. However, there was a Dutton connection, and Tim has a connection to Eagle Cars because his cousin, a chap called Alan Breeze, a graphic designer by trade, was I'm not too sure whether it was he that wanted to run or form a kit car company, or Tim wanted something slightly alternative to what he was doing, that would be kind of a satellite of Dutton Cars. But Eagle ran very much autonomously. But I do know in 1980 Tim Dutton and Alan Breeze took a Concorde flight to JFK Airport in New York with the intention of one of them importing an exotic or faux exotic US kit into the UK, which was a bit of a fashion then. And whatever way round it was, there was certainly an intention to create a company called Eagle Cars to sell that car. Now, I'm 99.99% certain it was, well, the reason they didn't just go looking for anything. They went looking for a particular car that looked like a Nova, which was of course selling very well in those days. And they settled on a car called the Cimbria, Cimbria. I've probably butchered that pronunciation, so apologies for people that appreciate good pronunciation. I'm from South London, for goodness sake. I struggle at the best of times. Now they're made by a company called Amore Cars, or Amore, I suppose, if you like things like that. But anyway, so they looked at, to be honest, they went to look at several. They went to look at the Kilmark GT. They went to look at what we know as the Sebring, which was produced by Classic Roadsters in the States. Beetle-based Healy. They looked at the Laser 917, the Bradley GT, and the aforementioned Cimbria. And Tim says they did a lot of deliberation, but they did settle on the Cimbria in the end. I think there might have been some suggestion that they would be an agent for the car that they decided to import, although in the end they quickly decided to buy the complete rights to it and manufacture it here in the UK, and that became the Eagle SS. And Tim spent some time to redevelop that package to better suit the UK market. He's a big fan. He was a big fan. I dare say he probably still is Tim, a Porsche fan, and so therefore he incorporated 928. Remember that car? That was a great car, the 928. You just don't see them anymore. Pop-up headlights. Tim had one. Countach style rear air scoops. Tim had one. And of course UK specification lighting. They also used, as certain classic car people like to say, Ford Fiesta door furniture, meaning hinges and handles in my language. They revised the bonnet cover and they created a set of right-hand drive mouldings, obviously because it was a left-hand drive car in the original form. And they even went to the lengths, and Tim was never shy about exhibiting at national shows, and they launched at the Earl's Court Motor Fair in 1981 to give it its best chance. Basically, it was nothing more exotic, same as the Nova, a standard VW base, and we're not going to go anywhere near the mention some people have made that the Cimbria was inspired by the Nova. We're not going to touch that here. Anyway, it had also there was a Ford Cortina version arrived in 1983, and that used a separate tubular steel chassis. And sorry, I should have told you the date. In 1980, I think. I can't remember if I mentioned that. So 1981, I did mention that for sure. So a year, 18 months after the VW based version was launched, they came out with a Ford based car. You can identify the Ford ones instantly by the large bonnet bulge to allow for carburetors, and the fact that the engine was in the front and it wasn't air cooled, I think, really. When Breeze departed in 1986, Eagle was taken over by a really good old fella, a former trials motorcycle rider of real note, Rob Budd, or Ginger to his mates, aided by his wife Pam, nice lady. And they ran the company all the way through to it ceased trading in 1999. And as I said, Rob had enjoyed much success in trials, and he rode a succession of motorcycles over the years, including a Greaves Stormer 250, which I think he did very, very well with. So the SS, the Eagle SS, we believe there's a good chance, and Rob kind of confirmed it last time I spoke to him many years ago, albeit, that they'd probably done 600. He told me 605, but we have to treat, unless we know for sure and definitively, we have to treat kitcar sales claims with a large dose of salt, a pinch of salt. But I believe there was a lot of those sold, so whichever way around it was, if it was 605, it was about 600. If it was 400, that's still quite a good number. That ended in 1999. Anyway, that wasn't actually the end of the SS. In 2007, out of the blue, a really nice chap called Tim Naylor, who created a company called, and I'm not going to try and butcher this pronunciation, TEAC or TEAC, which was TEAC Sports Cars. And he acquired the project from, goodness knows where. I think he probably got it from Rob Budd, to be honest with you. And announced a relaunch of the Eagle SS. And I'm not sure if the world was actually ready for a relaunch of an SS Eagle. Good car for its time, though it was. And it was a good car for its time. And it got good value for money. And he came out with a revised SS S3R, which was based on a Toyota MR2 Mark II. And also an all-new, which I never... he did actually show the SS S3R possibly Newark, but maybe even Stoneleigh in 08, I think. But he didn't show what the car he intended to launch was an all-new Mark IV. So I can't really tell you much about that one, other than it was planned. But I think it was always a sideline for Tim. And by 09, he decided either main work had become too much, or it just decided against doing it really. There was an SS Plus 2, a 2 Plus 2, which is kind of not really very well known. 1983. It was a 4-seat SS basically, or two adults and two Frankie Dettori sized passengers in the back. Based obviously on Eagle SS, although like that car, and it was based on Beatles floor plan, or you could have their own chassis with Cortina components. It was announced in June 1983. Kit prices were announced too at £1,500, although they only made one of those before Alan Breeze decided that rather than do that, they'd launch a thing called the Plus 2, which did a lot better. Now that was again inspired by the SS. They came up with a convertible top. It still was 2 Plus 2, but it had more, I suppose, cohesive styling, and that one was just based around full Cortina mechanicals. The Beetle option wasn't available for that one, and that one was designed by Tim Dutton. Actually, it did do quite well. It did 10% of what the SS did, so it did about 50. A company called Talon Sports Cars briefly, and I mean briefly, announced that they were going to relaunch it in 1991, about 5 minutes before they decided they weren't going to relaunch it. So I don't even think they produced one, but it was available from Eagle Cars. Yeah, I meant to say actually, Storrington in West Sussex is where they were, right across, beautiful location. If you know West Sussex, you'll know that Storrington's a nice. Well, I suppose it was a village when Rob Budd and Rob Budd and Alan Breeze were doing that thing, but it's now a small town. But it's a nice small town, and it's got the benefit of the beautiful South Downs. So if you're in that area, you can't go and see Eagle Cars anymore, but I recommend. There's some nice pubs on that road. The road that runs through the Downs, absolutely beautiful. On an afternoon like today, I'm sure it'd be glorious. So I recommend it. So if you ever, so you don't get that from other channels. You get crossover stuff here. We give you total travel advice. How about that? Storrington. I'm biased because I live in Sussex, albeit East Sussex, which is far prettier, of course. But that's an argument for another day, and I've probably just stirred a can of worms up there. So we'll move on swiftly. We're going to go through a couple of other Eagle models, which aren't in any particular order now. We've dealt with the SS and the Plus 2. We're going to talk about the one that was their biggest seller. We're going to talk about that now. That's the Eagle RV. Now that's an interesting story, a very interesting story. Biggest seller. I'll go straight in there. They sold 1,100 of them, and I'm pretty confident that is an accurate figure. That was inspired by, it came along in 83. 83 was a big year for Eagle, clearly. And that one came along as a result. I'll start from the beginning, really. It was inspired by American VW-based Jeep kit called the Rhino. And that was Beetle-based, funnily enough, engine in the rear. A company called, I'm going to butcher, why does an industry that I've given so much to terrorise me with pronunciation? God, here we go. Eland Mears, and that's ELAND Mears, MERES. They were based in Brum. I think there were a couple of brothers called the McKechnie brothers. That may or may not be true, but certainly a couple of brothers. And they did not much with it really, and they passed it on quickly to Eagle with Alan Breeze, ready to take that. And as soon as they got it, they recognised that it couldn't really be Beetle based, so they amended it to front engine. A beefy, sturdy ladder frame chassis was created, and the stalwart Cortina was named as donor. A very, very wise move. Looked like an off-roader. Looked like a 4x4. Wasn't. We'll come to the and let's move on. Two-wheel drive, but actually it had an amazing ability, the RV. I mean, it was obviously a targeted rival at West Sussex neighbour Jago, but clearly there was room for both of them, and not only in West Sussex. There was big sales for Jago, big sales for Eagle with the RV. But it might have only been two-wheel drive, but its chunky off-road nature immediately attracted customers, and sales literally took off. I remember a feature that I think it was I worked at Classic Kitcar Specials magazine, and the same company, Link House, published a off-road and four-wheel drive magazine, who actually featured, even though it wasn't 4x4, they featured that car. And I remember Rob seeing the photos, and Rob told me actually that the thing could just, well, it might as well have been four-wheel drive. It had an amazing ability for mud plugging, even though it had two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, basically. Very, very, very impressive ability, even though it wasn't designed for that. Rob later came up with a Sierra donor package, but it seemed to have a really purple patch. Certain kit cars have done that. They've sold in big numbers over, say, 6, 7, 8, 10-year period, and then they don't sell anymore. And that was the case with the Eagle RV. 83 to 1997 is when Eagle had it. They probably, the halcyon years were 83 to 93, if truth be told. Didn't do very many of those in the last sort of days, last years. It then moved to, well, let's just finish off talking about the Eagle Association. So they came up with a Sierra donor package. Rob did develop a car called the DB50, which was based, same body, slightly amended, on a Daihatsu 4-track, and that appeared in 1992. Not entirely sure how many that sold. I think very few, perhaps 4. Which is quite weird, really, because I think he thought that if he made a four-wheel drive one, people would buy them in bigger numbers, and in fact they did nothing at all. I think it was a proper honest kit car when people just wanted basic stuff back in those days, and I think the fact it looked like a Willis Jeep, and it was affordable, very affordable, meant that people would buy it regardless of what it could or couldn't do. And so I think when you presented someone with a four-wheel drive one, which by its very nature was more expensive to build, the genie was out the bottle, I think, and it wasn't so appealing which is weird because you would think it would be. Anyway, once Eagle had eat all the major sales out of it, Tony Holmes, a very talented kit car builder, been around the scene, or was around the scene for many years. He was running a company back then called Classic Transport, who were agents for several kit car companies, including Atlantis. And Tony took over in 1997. He made some improvements to the kit package. I mean, I remember that the spare wheel literally just hung unsupported, I think, off of the rear tailgate, GRP tailgate. So Tony put some strengthening in there, so it hung off a metal reinforced panel within that tailgate. And he just generally improved the build quality, which hadn't been touched for several years, really. Generally enhanced the kit. Classic Transport was absorbed into Pilgrim before. They didn't do much with it, really. Built a couple. There was a yellow demonstrator, which I think was a very nice car, which we did a feature on. And they sold the project to a Cumbrian chap called Jordan Gott, who had lots of interest in the project, had big plans, had a couple of years in control, sold a few kits, I think, and he moved off to Spain didn't take the project with him. And we mentioned a little while ago Tim Naylor of TEAC Sports Cars. He'd acquired the SS, and he also acquired the RV. But since he didn't do anything with it in about 2009, nothing else has been heard about it really. I think those moulds might have ended up in a boatyard somewhere in Kent, I believe. Oh, one thing I should say, Tim had, again, he had real good plans really. He slightly amended the name of the car. The two-wheel drive main one was called the RV2, and logically speaking, you know where I'm going with this. If there was a four-wheel drive order, it would be called RV4. But that was it. So about 1,100 of those sold. So it was a good seller. There was, and just confused matters even more, there was an Eagle RV 4x4 over and above the RV and the DB50. That was actually taken over by Rob Budd. Had developed it but did nothing with it. He created it was a good one actually, a Range Rover base, classic Range Rover in 1985. Slightly beefier, revised. I thought it had lots of potential, but he sold it on to a chap called Bob May, who was based, I think, near Guildford. In about 1996, 1997. Now, he kept an incredibly low profile. I didn't even know he'd stopped making them, although you could be forgiven for not even knowing that he had made them. But I was told from someone of a really reliable source who's into four-wheel drive and knew Bob May, told me that he may have sold 100 of those. Now, I haven't seen one, but I know these 4x4 enthusiasts like to go off and get muddy and not really talk about what they've done really, or they did in those days, and now you see all sorts of conversions and resto mods of Range Rovers, but in those days, in mid-80s, mid-90s, I don't think they did. Anyway, it's a good, very, very, very good chance. It sounds far-fetched, but there's a very good chance it's true. He made 100 Eagle 4x4s. Where they went, I have no clue. Let's sweep up the rest of the Eagle stable in no particular order. There was a Eagle M2 Milan, interesting name, exotic styled 4-seat convertible based again on Sierra, and that was a collaboration actually between German company, oh my god, here comes a pronunciation, spoiler alert, and that was called RR, I can do that bit, but they were called RR Transport Gerata, run by a company, and I hate this person that's written this, run by a guy called Dieter Rurzel. You only come here to hear me stumble on this pronunciation. I know you have. R-O, well, that's an umlaut on the O, I know that much. T-Z-E-L. So if that's Rurzel, that's his name. If it's not, I apologise. And in fact, that, and it's a little known fact for you, even though it didn't actually register on the sales charts other than the prototype, that car holds distinction of being the first Ford Sierra based kit. Rob Budd styled it. Obviously he had a lot of belief in that car initially because it was made from aluminium, beautifully produced by our good friend Clive Smart at Shapecraft, and that was 1994 I think. Then we move on to two Dutton kits, or ex-Dutton kits that Eagle marketed for a while. Didn't do bad with them either. I think it was a sort of a attempt to sort of re-inject sales back into the business, because RV had gone, the Eagle SS had sort of seen better days in terms of sales. So Rob Budd bought in basically two versions of the Dutton Phaeton. And that was the Eagle P21, which had cycle wings, made the body longer, made the cockpit wider, beefed up the glass fibre, and he revised the chassis, but it looked, to all intents and purposes, just like a Dutton Phaeton. That one, 40 of those were sold between 89 and 97. He bought those when Tim was giving up making conventional kit cars. We'll come to that in a minute actually. This could be a bit of a scoop Well, I don't think it'll be a scoop by the time this comes out, and of course you'll be listening to it in about 3 years' time, and it will be old news. But I hope just humour me. There was another version of that car. It was the Eagle P25. That again was based on a Phaeton. That one had closed with flowing wings. Again with a thicker GRP and larger dimensions. 35 of them were sold. And then we just got to sweep up, before I come to Dutton, little news on Dutton as of August 2024. So please don't moan if you're listening to this for the first time in 2026. I know, well, you can, but what's he talking about? You can, because, yeah, it'll be old news then, won't it? There was a thing called finally, there was a thing called the Eagle Sendto. Stendetto. And that was another American-inspired kit, although it came from France. And that was a Pontiac Fiero-based Ferrari F40-esque, and I'm not going to even go anywhere near calling it a replica, but it was Ferrari F40 inspired, shall we say. Body conversion. I think the original was commissioned by a French manufacturer, although kitcar journalist or ex-kitcar journalist Ian Eyre definitely came up with a name. Give him the credit for that. Might have produced about 40 of them, and I've got a funny feeling that one may have gone off to the Fiero factory in the Midlands. I think that project. I'm not entirely certain about that one, but that's a possibility. But there we go. We have it. Eagle Cars. A manufacturer. If you knew, you knew. If you didn't, you now do. A good kit car company, I think. They made some good products. They tried hard. They gave customers value for money. Ginger Bud was an absolute star. Really like Rob. He was a good character. Called a spade a sledgehammer. Lots of people like that in the kit car industry. I'm pleased to say, and he was one of the good guys. Let's talk about Dutton. 2024 August. Very, very recently, Tim, I knew that he couldn't keep away, I guess, and he wouldn't mind me saying it. I think he's about 75 in August 2024. And you may or may not know, he was, after he gave up making, shall we say, conventional kit cars, he started producing amphibious cars, and he made 260 of those until he sold the company in autumn of 2023. Now, I knew he couldn't retire. I've known Tim nearly 40 years, and I knew he wouldn't be able to retire, and I knew he was up to something. He'd been asking me a few interesting questions about, what's a good donor to use these days, and he appeared at our stand, turned up as a punter at the National Kit Car Motor Show. Didn't say Stoneleigh, you didn't catch me out, Malvern, in June, for what he said was just a look around, which struck me as odd. He then asked me about the new Newark show, which is in September this year. He was thinking of going along to have a look now, and all this seemed interesting. And I did know, he did tell me that he was, inverted commas coming out now, in buying and refurbishing and selling old Dutton Phaetons, of which he sold loads. Plenty of material there for him to restore, and that he is actually doing that. What he didn't tell me until last week when he announced it officially was that, and this is big news for the kit car industry, it's probably going to be, and it puts thus far in August, it probably will be the biggest news of the industry's year, that Tim Dutton, bless him, at 75, still got incredible drive, is making kit cars again. And he's relaunching the Phaeton in Series 5, guys, and that's Five Guys, not the burger company. In Series 5, guys, Mark 5. Because I know I'm going to get someone saying, Five Guys, it's not a bad idea, that. But anyway, Mazda MX-5 based, NC Mark 3, and I think that's a great idea. Enlarged cockpit, lengthened cockpit, and generally brought up to date. And I think there'll be a mileage for that car. Let's face it, he sold 8,000 kit cars first time around, 260 amphibious vehicles. Clearly the man knows how to sell kit cars, and regardless of the fact he sold 8,000 cars, which are kits, which demands itself. It just demands respect in itself. I just think he knows how to sell cars, kit cars. So he's about to launch that. If you go into the Newark show at the end of September, you'll undoubtedly see him there, and don't be surprised if he sells a few. But anyway, that's the news. We mentioned Dutton a fair bit in this video, so I think it's only right that, with the caveat that if you're listening to it in a year or two's time, it's out of date and you're going, what's he on about? But there again, I may get Neil to take that bit out if I remember. Anyway, that's about all for today, and I have had a bit of a ramble, and I haven't any drink today, so I can promise you that. But I hope you enjoyed that one. I was looking at some stats the other day, and I think we've got over 1,200 subscribers now, which is absolutely mind-blowing for me. And I can't thank you enough for that, showing faith in the little channel. But I think 75% of people that listen to these videos don't actually subscribe. So if I could ask you, please, just on your way out, if you could hit that little subscribe and like button, or like buttons, I would be so grateful, and I would really appreciate it. And it just gives a bit of faith, and it lets us just put a bit more into the channel. We have got some plans for the channel. Time flies, you don't know where you are when I'm doing this. So I started this channel almost a year ago in July 2023 with Neil at Enwin Auto's help, of course, invaluable help and support. And I had no idea I'd still be producing these little videos a year later. And again, I can only thank you, wherever you are in the world, whatever you're doing. If it's somewhere like Bali or somewhere like that, I won't be jealous, not at all. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thank you so much for coming along and just listening to me ramble on about old kit cars. I hope you enjoyed it. We've got plenty more planned for you. There's going to be a good one. Well, they're all good, of course, I should say, but we've got one coming up very soon on Jeremy Phillips' Silver Auto Kits. Very good friend of mine and someone I admire immensely. And excuse me, right up there, underrated, but right up there with the greatest car designers the UK's ever produced, in my humble opinion. The ability to produce a car that looks diminutive, but it's like a TARDIS inside. And let's not even mention the insane handling ability that every silver has. Anyway, that's coming up soon. Hope you have a great day. Thanks very much for visiting. I look forward to warmly welcoming you next time. Thank you very much.